there, I'm Bonnie McCaffery, and thank you so much for coming back this month for another vidcast. I am here with Elaine Quehl, who is a Canadian quilter, and she's done this spectacular piece that you see behind me. Elaine, could you tell us a little bit about your piece?
Okay, the piece here is called In the Act, and it's one of a series of hosta quilts that I've been working on over the last 5 years. This one is kind of the point at which the hosta leaves are in full growth, which is why it's called In the Act.
Oh, I see. It's in the act of unfolding.
Unfolding, just like a middle-aged woman.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely.
So they're a metaphor for me.
They are,
yes.
And me, and a lot more of us, I'm sure.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Tell me about the book, because that's kind of neat.
There's a new book out called Art Quilt Portfolio, The Natural World. It was authored by Martha Seelman, the director of Studio Art Quilt Associates. And it features 21 artists who work with a natural world theme. And I was honored to be one of the 21 artists in the book.
And now we're going to go get set up, and Elaine is going to show us how she goes through her design process in order to create a quilt like this.
Okay, so I start with a photograph that I've taken, and I have a library of thousands of photographs of hosta leaves. You can see the kind of photograph here that I like to work with. I want something that's got lots of highlights and shadows. So there's certain times a day when you get that a bit more, like when the sun's coming in from the side, early morning, late afternoon.
So what would make this a good photograph? The fact that there's bright, medium dark, and dark?
Okay, one thing that makes my heart beat faster is when I see depth and highlights and shadows. I love artworks that have a lot of that going on in them. So and that also gives you a feeling of movement too.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for something like that. And this one is actually cropped out of a larger photo.
Okay.
Okay, so when I go to choose my composition, I always play with my photographs. Like I don't necessarily get the composition right as I take the picture. For example, this one here, the quilt that we just shot down in the show, is actually cropped out of this larger picture here.
Oh, wow.
And to do that, I either do it on the computer, as I did in this case, or I will get my viewfinder out and I'll find a good composition. So you can see the feeling of movement on this composition here, which really goes well with the title of the piece.
Okay.
In the Act. Right.
Okay, so that's how you pick. So how do you get from that to a pattern?
Okay.
Are they pieced?
They're fusible applique.
Fusible applique. Yeah. Okay. So good to know how we're going in.
Now, sometimes I draw them when they're fairly simple, but most of the quilts I've made, I've used this process of putting a transparency overlay on the photograph, and then I'm tracing out all the areas where I see color and value changes. Once I have this transparency film with the design on, I need to enlarge it, and there's two ways to do that. One is to go to a copy shop and have them enlarge it, or you can put this on an overhead projector and project it to the wall where you have a piece of paper taped. And that's what this one I did with an overhead.
Okay.
Okay.
So you just project it and trace it on there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see you've numbered it.
Yes, very important to number it, because you can get so easily confused about what you're working on. And the way that I number it is I look at my photograph and I'm numbering the parts that are further away first. I would put the background in first, then I would go into here, and I'm always moving towards what is the closest to me. So the closest goes in last.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So that they're overlapping into the distance.
Why are there different colored lines on your pattern?
When you have a pattern this complex, it's easy to get confused about whether you're working on leaf A or B or C or D. So if I actually outline everything that belongs to leaf A or leaf E, it's easy at a glance to see which leaf it is I'm dealing with.
So this here is
this one down here.
Down here. So it's kind of if we went like this.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Right.
Great. Is this reversed?
Yes.
Okay.
After I've got the pattern made in large, I have to flip it over and trace it to the back side.
Oh my gosh.
Because I need a pattern in reverse. when I trace onto my fusible web.
So what kind of fusible web are you using?
I love Steam-A-Seam Light. This is the one that only has the one backing paper. It has enough of that pressure-sensitive, repositionable adhesive for my use, but the one with 2 backing papers has more of that.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So you trace your pattern.
Okay, before I do that, I trace my pattern onto either a piece of muslin or a lightweight piece of interfacing, because this is what I'm going to build the quilt on.
Okay.
Okay. This is a very lightweight Pellin interfacing. Usually I use muslin. When I don't have muslin around, I use this.
Okay, so now you have your base. Then what happens?
Okay, then I will pull out all the fabrics that I think I might use in the piece. These are all my hand-dyed fabrics, and the reason I like dyeing the fabric for my pieces is, first of all, it's very addictive, and it's like Christmas morning when you take fabric out of the dye pot. It's always a surprise. But the other biggie that I've found is the modeling that you get in the hand-dyed fabrics really works well when you're translating nature into a quilt, because nothing in nature is flat or solid. It's always dappled with light. There's always little value changes along the piece. So this works very well like that. It almost has a painterly look to it. So that's what I like about it.
And I'm amazed how perfectly they match the photograph.
Well, my favorite color is a yellow-green, and I have a lot of fabric in that color.
Yes.
Yeah. And you want to make sure you have a really, really good range of values. You want really, really dark and really, really light on each end, because without that wide range of value, you're not going to get the drama. And I want drama. So
now we have our Steam-A-Seam.
Right. I usually work with the muslin or the interfacing up on the wall, and I put the pieces up on the wall as I make them. But the pattern I leave in reverse on the table. And then what I need to do is trace all of my pattern pieces onto the fusible web. So here you can see I've done one here, I've traced here.
Oh, okay.
And I've already ironed it to my fabric. Okay? So pattern piece.
So it's on the wrong side of the fabric.
Right. Except in hand dyes, there's no right or wrong.
Isn't that nice?
Yes. And this is actually a piece where I need 2 values. And the reason for that, if you look at my quilts, I have done this kind of reverse applique process where you see the veins showing through on the leaves. I
see that.
Okay. I don't do that on all my hosta quilts, but on most of them now I do. It almost adds a little form of abstraction. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the bottom piece out. That's the veins you see peeking through.
Okay, that's the vein piece.
And the top piece gets cut out, but it also gets cut along all of the veins.
Right.
And a little bit of the vein cut away. So these all have to fit down on this piece with a little bit of that piece showing through.
Wow.
Right.
Well, that makes it a lot easier, doesn't it, than trying to Steam-A-Seam in a little skinny piece.
Oh, yes. And it makes the leaf, like the whole leaf, kind of flow together.
Yeah.
Because it's from the same piece of fabric.
Right. Oh, perfect.
Now, when I'm choosing my fabric, I don't number what value goes where. I always work closely with the photograph and observe, well, that's really dark. I think I'll go about that dark. And that's really light. I think I'll go about there. But there's still some lighter stuff up here that I'm going to have to save this one for.
Got it.
So I just kind of observe as I go.
So you put them all up there and then fuse it after you've made a final decision?
Having worked with this process, because I've made a lot of hosta quilts in this series, I tend to fuse after each leaf now if I think it's looking okay.
She's brave.
And one thing I do
is a commitment.
I always take a digital photograph first before I fuse, and then I have a good objective, distant view of what's happening, and is it looking the way I want it to.
So Elaine has just told me a little thing of a little sneaky thing of what she's doing now, and it sounds very intriguing.
It's not sneaky. It's not sneaky. This is.
Look, let me use a different word. Intriguing.
Okay.
I am intrigued by what she's doing. So tell me, what are you doing?
Well, when I have a photograph that I like, it's not always exactly how I would like. In other words, there are things that I could improve upon, like that leaf might look better cozied up to that other leaf, or something could be taken out or improved upon. So some of the pieces now I'm actually and this is very
This
low.
is so cool.
This is very low tech. I'm actually printing photos, and this is a combination of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 photographs I've used to make this composition. And you could probably do this, I'm sure you could do this in Photoshop, but I don't know how. So I play with my scissors and cut them out until I get something
cool.
I like. And I've made a couple of pieces that have a red stool in the hosta patch.
Love it, and it's perfect. Well, I would love to ask you a question, and the question is what is your philosophy of life?
Bonnie's asking, what is my philosophy of life? Well, one of the biggies is see the world, enjoy nature, don't sweat the small stuff, work hard and play hard.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing how you make your gorgeous quilts.
Thank you for having me here, Bonnie.
Yeah, it's been great. And thank you all. I hope you'll come back next month to see what I have for you then. Thanks for being with me.